Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Monday, March 9th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. Unfortunately, the losing streak continued as we ended up taking the Raptors -6, and they only won by 5. Seems like during the streak we've had at least a couple of games that have been decided by a point or half a point or something like that. Looked somewhat promising in the first quarter as the Raptors were up 20-9 early on. Kings, instead of falling in the second half as they were playing the second half of back-to-back, ended up playing extremely well in the fourth. You ended up having 79 points in the fourth quarter. And unfortunately, Anunoby missed a free throw, and we ended up only winning by 5. So they didn't cover there, but we'll look for a bounce-back play here. Hopefully to end the losing streak in college basketball on Monday. And for this play, we're going to be looking at a college basketball matchup between Louisiana Lafayette and Georgia Southern. And we're going to actually be looking at a total in this game, and we like the over 153.5, which is available on FanDuel at -105. Now, a couple reasons why we like the over in this spot. First of all, a decent amount of line movement on the over. It's gone from 152.5 on the overnight to 153.5. So there has been a decent amount of money coming in on the over, and I think that it is warranted based on the two teams that are playing. These teams actually played a couple of weeks ago, and the game ended up totaling into the 160s. So I think that this total is a bit too low. Now, another reason why I like the over here is because of the fact that both teams play with a lot of pace. If you've looked, according to KenPom rankings at adjusted offensive tempo, both teams rank within the top 41 in the country in pace. So both teams love to go up and down the court. I think you should see a lot of opportunities in transition, a lot of quick possessions, and I think both teams should be able to find some open looks. Plus, it is worth mentioning that in these conference tournaments, a general rule of thumb would be to lean more to overs than unders, although there is some value on some unders if the line is still too high. Because both teams in every game will be fighting for their lives in the conference tournament, you should see a ton of fouling down the stretch, which tends to lead to a lot higher scoring second halves. Because of the fact that if a team is down 15 with 2 minutes to go, instead of simply just throwing in the towel, some teams will actually try to foul and extend the game due to a last-second desperation attempt of keeping their conference tournament hopes alive. Some teams are still fighting for a spot in the NCAA tournament, and their conference tournament is the only way that they can actually get in. So teams will still be fouling down the stretch, trying to extend the game as much as possible, and teams are a lot more tentative to actually wave the white flag late in games. So based on that, I think you should see a high-scoring game between these two teams based on the fact that both teams play at a very fast pace. If you've looked at the actual statistics for both teams are pretty high up there in terms of points per game. Louisiana Lafayette is averaging 73, Georgia Southern's averaging 75, but both teams are giving up over 70 points per game. Louisiana Lafayette is giving up 76 points per game. Plus, I said before, with the free throws, you should see both teams, especially with the pace alone, I think both teams will get into the bonus pretty early on, and I think you should see the trailing team fouling down the stretch of the game, which should cause some more possessions, more points late, and I think you could see 80-plus points, potentially 90 in the second half, which should bode well for the over. If you've looked at Louisiana Lafayette's last couple of games, though, their games have been very high scoring towards the back half of the season, and if you've actually broken it down, the majority of their last 9 games have actually gone over this posted total. 7 of the last 9 have gone over this total, and I believe 8 of the last 9 of Louisiana's games have gone over. So based on that, they have a good track record of going over, and since they play no defense, I think you should see a high-scoring game. So for that reason, play of the day once again is going to be on the over 153.5 between Louisiana Lafayette and Georgia Southern, and that one is available on FanDuel at -105. Now, I know that we were in the middle of a losing streak, so if you want to tail, you can. If you want to fade, you can. Go ahead. Hopefully this does work out, though. Other than that, though, looking at the leans for the rest of the card, very small amount of action on the NBA. You only have 3 games going on, and in those 3 games, I got my leans on all of them. I'll lean to Charlotte plus the 4 against Atlanta. I think they could win outright. Trae Young, even though he came back from the flu in his last game, they were still terrible. They got blown up by Memphis again. Charlotte, even though this team doesn't have a lot of talent, this team is very crafty. And I give respect to the coaching staff for actually making this team more competitive than I thought that they ever would be. Charlotte, I like the way they play basketball. They just don't have much talent. Atlanta, even though they have the talent, I just don't really think that they're that good. They play no defense. Trae Young can't guard anybody. And I do like John Collins, but everyone else on the roster I think is pretty replaceable. I'm going to lean to Charlotte. I think they'll win the game outright. This game should be close, but at the end of the day, I feel more confident about the way Charlotte's been playing lately than Atlanta, so lean to the Hornets on that one. Other than that, lean to Utah, minus the 4.5 against Toronto. Toronto just played yesterday against the Kings, and they ended up losing. Or they ended up not covering. We had that as play today. But since they're playing the second half back-to-back and having to travel to Utah, I don't really think that they're going to play that well. Lean to the Jazz with the rest advantage on that one. Other than that, looking at the rest of the card here, I'm going to lean to the Nuggets here, minus 5.5. Giannis is out, and Milwaukee just played yesterday. Huge track meet game against the Suns. They gave up 140 points, scored 130-something. Very high scoring. They went up and down. I think they'll get exhausted in the altitude of Denver. So lean to the Nuggets on that one. Now looking at college basketball, I'm going to lean to North Dakota State here against Oral Roberts. Historically speaking, North Dakota State has dominated this conference in recent years. And since it's on a neutral in South Dakota, North Dakota State tends to travel well, and I think that they will be able to handle this game. You've had a line movement on North Dakota State. It's gone from pick'em to minus 1.5. I think they should be able to win this game. They split the regular season matchups against Oral Roberts, but this is on a neutral, so that doesn't really matter since the home team won both of those meetings. I'm going to lean to North Dakota State, though. I think they're the more talented team. I think they're the deeper team, and they play significantly better defense than Oral Roberts, so lean to the Bison on that one. Other than that, though, what else do I like here? I'm going to lean to the first half under between Kent State and Eastern Michigan. Kent State, solid offense, but Eastern Michigan loves to play a 2-3 zone that tends to drastically reduce the pace of play. Eastern Michigan offensively has been a disaster, so their offense is nothing to fear. But their defense, despite the fact that they have been a little bit hit or miss record-wise because of their really poor offense, their defense throughout the entire season has been very good because of that 2-3 zone, and I think it will force Kent State into some long possessions. So for me, lean to the under in the first half. Second half with the free throws I said before regarding the play that I think could work against the under here in this game. So for me, I'll lean to the first half under. Try to ignore the late game free throws as much as possible, and I think you should see a lower scoring first half in that one. Other than that, lean to the over in Buffalo and Miami. Game's gone from 150 to 153. Buffalo's been very solid offensively. Defensively, not that great. They also play at the 7th fastest pace in the entire country. Meanwhile, Miami does not play defense whatsoever, and this team is terrible. So for me, I'll lean to the over. I think Buffalo could get into the 80s or 90s, and I think you should see this game be pretty high scoring, so I'll lean to the over on that one. Other than that, though, I think that's pretty much it for my thoughts on today's card. Play of the day, once again, is going to be on Georgia Southern and Louisiana Lafayette over 153.5, which is available on FanDuel at minus 105. That's good for the installment of Scott Selections here for Monday, March 9th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.